Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're diving into something I'm willing to bet almost every single one of us deals with: subscription fatigue. You absolutely know the feeling, right? You look at your monthly credit card statement and it's just this endless list of software services quietly siphoning away your money. Well, today we're looking at a super fascinating journey of taking one of those services back. We're unpacking a great piece by Samar Veer Singh over at XDA Developers, where he walks through how he literally replaced his paid transcription service with a completely self-hosted setup. You see, Samar Veer had this realization that, honestly, is probably going to hit pretty close to home for a lot of you. He described his recurring transcription bill as a tax on something I should simply own. He'd been using Google's built-in meeting transcription, and month after month, that charge stopped feeling like a handy convenience and started feeling like, well, an unjustified penalty. It's a huge shift in mindset, right? Moving from seeing software as this inevitable thing you just have to rent forever to viewing it as a tool you can literally possess. Okay, let's dive into this, because this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. We're talking about real money here. $14. That is the exact amount Samar Veer was paying every single month for those Google Meet notes. Now, sure, $14 might not sound like a massive mountain of cash right off the bat, but $14 every single month, basically forever, that adds up incredibly fast. We are dealing with a very tangible, everyday annoyance here. It's exactly the kind of recurring microtransaction that finally pushes you to just throw your hands up and say, okay, enough is enough. So here is our roadmap for the Explainer today. 1. The transcription subscription tax. 2. Enter Docker and Speaker. 3. The WhisperX setup process. 4. DIY Speaker versus paid polish. And 5. Reclaiming your data. All right, jumping right into Section 1, the transcription subscription tax. Let's look at why Samar Veer needed such heavy-duty transcription to begin with. We're calling this the PC builder's dilemma. So he builds custom PCs for clients. And if you have ever done any highly custom consulting work, you already know that a massive chunk of the job is literally just listening. You're trying to nail down exactly what the customer wants, and maybe more importantly, what they absolutely do not want. He talks about clients having these oddly specific requests, like needing exactly 12 USB ports, for example. These are long, super detailed conversations. And if you miss one tiny detail from a sprawling hour-long meeting, it can completely ruin the entire build. He needed transcription just so he wouldn't have to scrub back and forth through long audio files like some kind of human VCR just to hunt down a single measurement. But actually, scratch that. Beyond the $14 a month, there was a secondary and I'd argue way more critical issue that pushed him over the edge: privacy. Just the thought of having these intimate, super detailed recordings of customer conversations sitting indefinitely on a third-party cloud server, it's privacy on somebody else's hardware. And as someone who is already dipping their toes into self-hosting, leaving this highly specific customer data floating out in the cloud just became, increasingly tough to justify. Which brings us to Section 2, Enter Docker and Speaker. This is where a project that sounded like an agonizing weekend-long chore actually turned into a quick 15-minute victory. The real star of the show here is Speaker. So what is it? It's a self-hosted transcription tool. But the absolute crucial thing to grasp is that Speaker acts as your home base. It's the user interface, it handles all the local storage of your files, and it manages the summaries of your audio. It's essentially the front-end dashboard that takes a bunch of code and makes it actually feel like a cohesive, usable application. And the engine powering Speaker? That's Docker. Now, if you're not super technical, do not let the jargon scare you off. Just think of Docker as basically a physical shipping container, but for software. It takes an application and literally everything it needs to run and packages it up into one standardized, lightweight little box. It does all the heavy lifting of deployment for you. Because of Docker, Samar Veer didn't have to waste hours tweaking his operating system. He literally just deployed the container and let it do its thing. Moving right along to Section 3, the WhisperX setup process. I really want to highlight just how surprisingly low the technical barrier to entry actually is for this. There were literally just 3 exact steps to get this entirely private service up and running. Step 1, pull the Docker Compose file. Step 2, add the required environment variables. And Step 3, point Speaker to a self-hosted WhisperX endpoint. That is it, the whole shebang. What he totally assumed would eat up an entire weekend took about 15 minutes to get off the ground. Speaker gives you the interface, but WhisperX is the actual muscle doing all that complex speech-to-text translation. Now, he did have a major choice to make here. He easily could have just pointed Speaker straight to OpenAI's transcription API, which, by the way, is super common. But he deliberately went the extra mile to set up his own self-hosted WhisperX endpoint. Why? Simple, complete and total privacy. By totally bypassing OpenAI, he made absolutely sure that those customer audio files never, ever leave his own local hardware. No cloud processing, zero third-party data collection. The entire heartbeat of this project was keeping his clients' voices securely off somebody else's servers. And now, what's really interesting about this is the magic feature that makes transcription actually readable in the first place: speaker diarization. Sounds fancy, but it's basically the software's ability to clearly identify and separate exactly who said what. Because without it, a three-person meeting just turns into this massive, unreadable wall of text. WhisperX handles this beautifully, automatically separating out the different speakers. And the kicker is, this is usually a premium feature you'd pay top dollar for in commercial apps, but here it is, running completely for free on his own PC. So is it all sunshine and roses? Let's get into Section 4, DIY speaker versus paid polish. Because we definitely need an honest look at the rough edges you're going to hit with self-hosted software. Let's put them head to head. DIY Speaker is, right now, very much an alpha project. The author is super upfront about this. He says it has a real 2018 to 2019 Jellyfin vibe. And if you've ever messed around with the Jellyfin media server back in the day, you know that means the elbow grease is 100% on you. You're the one maintaining those containers to keep them alive. Now, contrast that with a commercial giant like Otter AI. That is a highly mature plug-and-play product. With a polished paid service, you get all those refined quality of life features. You pay your monthly fee, and it just works seamlessly out of the box. So why on earth would you choose the DIY route when something like Otter is just so incredibly polished? Well, because the trade-off absolutely wins on the fundamentals. First off, zero monthly subscription fees hanging over your head forever. Second, your sensitive customer recordings stay strictly on your local hardware. And third, modern personal PC hardware can easily handle this kind of workload without breaking a sweat. For Samarveer, giving up a tiny bit of that commercial polish was just a no-brainer trade for absolute privacy and permanent cost savings. Which brings us perfectly to our final section, Section 5, Reclaiming Your Data. Let's tie all this technical setup back to the big picture here: digital ownership. Honestly, the most surprising takeaway from this whole journey wasn't even the $14 a month he saved. It was the complete mental shift. Something he had mentally boxed up as too complicated to self-host was just instantly demystified. This incredibly daunting task transformed almost overnight into just another reliable, everyday service quietly humming away in the background of his computer right alongside everything else. And this brilliantly illustrates the real reward of tackling a project like this. As Samarveer put it, once the containers were talking to each other, I'd effectively built my own little transcription service. There is just this immense joy, this deep satisfaction in piecing together a solution that you entirely own and control. Dropping a raw, hour-long customer meeting into Speaker and watching it spit out a searchable, locally processed transcript in minutes, it's just incredibly empowering. So I want to leave you with this provocative question, directly inspired by Samarveer's setup. Once the barrier to entry for owning your own tools drops to just a simple Docker Compose file and a Dave tinkering, what is your justification for paying someone else a subscription fee indefinitely? If your own hardware can do the job securely and privately, maybe it is finally time to reclaim your data, stop renting your software, and start building your own solutions. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, I highly encourage you to take a good hard look at your own list of subscriptions today.